Tonight, I will take you to a mountain where the moonlight drifts across colossal faces, still gazing quietly toward the dawn of America. In the pine forests of the Black Hills, Mount Rushmore lies still, as if it were breathing. A temple of stone, where history is not written in ink, but in time and mountain dust. They call it the Shrine of Democracy. But long before that name was spoken, the Lakota people called this place Thunkashila Shakbe, the Six Grandfathers, a sacred land where they believe the spirits of their ancestors still dwell within every rock and ridge. And deep within the heart of the grey granite, there is a sealed door, a door never meant for human footsteps. Tonight, through the wind and the dark, we will follow the breath of time to see what secrets the mountain still keeps. Beneath the deep pine forests of South Dakota lies a mass of rock that has existed for more than 2 billion years. A vast block of granite that people call Mount Rushmore. When the sun is still asleep behind the hills, the first light of day gently touches the pink and grey veins of stone. The granite here is so hard that even steel drills must pause to breathe. Thin layers of mica schist shimmer beneath the sunlight like summer water. According to reports from the National Park Service and the US Geological Survey, this is one of the most durable rock formations in all of North America. Every 1,000 years, it wears away by only the thickness of a coin. The rate of erosion, just 1 inch every 10,000 years, has made this place a symbol of endurance. It feels as though nature chose this land to keep the memory of humanity longer than any page could hold. Each morning, as the sun rises from the east, the light falls across the southeastern face of the mountain, bathing it in a soft golden hue. The stone seems to glow from within. Each vein lights up like a pulse beneath the skin of the rock. People say the light at Rushmore does not simply touch the stone. It awakens the memories that sleep within it. The wind slides down the slopes and disappears into the pines, leaving a sound like the slow breath of an ancient being. The mountain breathes. Time moves slowly in silence. But before that light had a name, it once shone upon the prayers of the old ones. The Lakota called this place Thunkashila Shakbe, 6 grandfathers, 6 spirits representing the 6 directions: east, west, south, north, above, and below. They believed the mountain was a sacred pillar connecting heaven and earth, where the spirits of their ancestors watched over their children. When the first light passed through the pine peaks, the elders said it was the moment when the 6 grandfathers smiled. For generations, the Lakota came here to pray, speaking to their ancestors in the language of the wind. To them, the mountain was not stone. It was a memory. It was the living heart of sacred land. Then time moved on. When mining expeditions reached the Black Hills, a lawyer named Charles Rushmore came to survey for ore. During a conversation, he asked a local worker what the mountain was called. The worker laughed and said, "Well, now it's named after you, Mr. Rushmore." A joke became a habit, and the habit became a name. By 1930, the US Board on Geographic Names made it official. Mount Rushmore. The old name, Six Grandfathers, faded into the mist of legend. On maps, the mountain carried its new name, but to the Lakota, it still belonged to the ancestors. Two names, side by side, one written on paper, one held in spirit, and between them, the wind kept blowing, holding a balance between two memories. Then one day, humanity wanted to carve a new memory into the mountain. In the early 20th century, America was searching for a symbol of itself. Historian Don Robinson dreamed of a monument that would draw travelers to the Wild West. He imagined frontier heroes, explorers, and native leaders carved into the Black Hills, a stone epic of American history. He proposed the project to sculptor Gutzon Borglum, a man who had already worked on great monuments. But Borglum shook his head. The rock at the Needles was too brittle. Wind and ice would destroy the carvings within decades. "If you want to carve into time," he said, "find a place where light lives with the work." After months of searching, Borglum stood before Mount Rushmore. The mountain faced southeast, catching sunlight all day, its shadows brief and soft. He said the light here would awaken the face of America every morning. In the Needles, he saw darkness. In Rushmore, he saw dawn. His decision was both practical and poetic: to carve the faces where the light would never fade. When Borglum laid his hand upon the granite, he said he could feel the mountain's pulse. He imagined the sunlight flowing across the carved lines, giving life to the stone. He believed that when light touched it, the four faces would become the spirit of the nation. Engineers mapped each vein of rock, measuring every angle and depth. The granite was nearly perfect. No major cracks, no hidden pockets, only dense, ancient strength. Borglum smiled and said, "This is not just rock. This is the backbone of America." For him, choosing Rushmore was not simply an artistic decision. It was a declaration that this monument would live as long as the democracy it honored. Winter came to the Black Hills. Frost covered the cliffs. The low sun made the stone shine like blood beneath skin. Borglum looked east and said, "The light will go with us. Let it shine on the face of America every morning." From that moment, every drill, every cut, every mark followed the direction of the sun. From the first light of dawn to the last glow of evening, Rushmore became a mirror for the sky. Geology, light, names, and dreams, all layered together like strata of time. Beneath each layer was a story of the earth, of people, and of the human desire to be remembered in stone. Mount Rushmore is not only granite and steel, it is a symphony of light and will. And as evening falls over the Black Hills, the final rays slide across the mountain's surface. On that stone lie not only the faces of 4 presidents, but the traces of millions of years of earth and sky whispering together. The mountain may seem still, but beneath its silence, something is always moving, something humanity calls history. In 1927, the first explosions echoed through the mountains of the Black Hills. Smoke from the dynamite drifted slowly through the thin air, and from that moment, the history of Mount Rushmore began to be written in stone dust. Gutzen Borglum and 400 workers built scaffolds, hung steel cables, and worked high on the cliffs. They were not artists. They were miners, farmers, and men without work during the Great Depression. Every day, they hung between sunlight and wind, hands gripping air hammers, feet resting on ropes, eyes fixed on the vast face of the mountain. They could not see the whole sculpture, only the fragments falling away. Yet in the rhythm of the explosions, they believed the shape of America was slowly emerging. More than 90% of the mountain was removed by dynamite. Each blast was measured to the inch so that the granite would not fracture. The explosion would sound, then fall quiet, leaving behind an echo like the heartbeat of the mountain. Over the course of 14 years, more than 450,000 tons of rock were cleared, revealing 4 great faces turned toward the sunrise. When the dust settled, the workers looked up and called it the miracle of stone, because among thousands of explosions, fragile scaffolds, and fierce mountain winds, not one life was lost. Borglum often said that each blast was a step forward in time. He measured every angle, every cut, so that each morning the sunlight would fall exactly where he imagined it. The work was a blend of precision and feeling, of engineering and art. The foreman would count down. The mountain would tremble. Then, as the smoke lifted, part of a face would awaken. There were cheers, rough laughter, and the sound of steel fading into silence. No one thought they were shaping a symbol. They only knew the rock was moving beneath their hands. But not everything went as planned. Initially, Thomas Jefferson was placed to the right of George Washington. But deep within the stone, Borglum found cracks running through the granite. He ordered the work destroyed. A week of labor vanished in a single blast. It is said that when the dust cleared, Borglum stood silently for a long time and finally whispered, "We will begin again. This time, the stone will stand." He moved Jefferson to the left of Washington. His face turned west, looking toward the lands he once dreamed of expanding. Winter swept through the Black Hills. Frost covered the cliffs. The low sun caught on the unfinished lines, making them shine like veins beneath skin. Borglum looked up and said to his team, "The light will go with us. Let it shine on the face of America every morning." That sentence became the spirit of the project. From then on, every cut, every drill mark, followed the light. The monument neared completion, even as time ran short. Borglum dreamed of carving shoulders, chests, and a hand holding a document. But the funds were gone, and the world was turning toward war. When he died in 1941, his son, Lincoln Borglum, completed the final details before the work stopped. The unfinished parts remained locked within the mountain, like a dream half-carved. Yet even incomplete, the 4 faces stood tall, as if a part of the nation's soul had turned to stone. The wind still moves through the old carvings. And when the tools fell silent, one question remained. Which faces are worthy to be carved into time? The 4 faces were not chosen by chance. Borglum believed they represented 4 eras of the nation: birth, expansion, development, and preservation. George Washington, the founder, stood for beginnings and perseverance. Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence, embodied the spirit of exploration and innovation. Theodore Roosevelt, who led America into the industrial age, symbolized strength and progress. And Abraham Lincoln, the face of compassion, represented unity and the preservation of the nation's soul. Under Borglum's hands, they were more than portraits. He carved each brow and each line of the lips so that the morning sun would fill them with breath. Washington stood at the center, the beginning and the guide. Jefferson tilted west, where the light of the afternoon still lingers. Roosevelt, set deep in the rock, looked firm yet kind. Lincoln looked downward, thoughtful, as if carrying the weight of forgiveness. 4 directions, 4 spirits, 4 chapters of one story. Not just the story of America, but of human will before nature. As evening falls, the last light brushes their faces and fades into quiet. Only the wind remains and the cold breath of stone. People say that on misty mornings, if you stand at the mountain's base, you can still hear the sound of distant hammers. Not the sound of work, but of faith. The belief that humanity can carve eternity into stone. Borglum once wrote that he did not want to build a monument. He wanted to write a declaration in stone. He believed that when the work was done, those 4 faces would speak for millions of Americans, of freedom, of hope, and of the courage to rise beyond their limits. Through every explosion, every falling shard, not a single life was lost. It was as if the mountain itself stood with the men, guarding the hands that carved it. They called it the miracle of stone, a story unwritten, but remembered by all who once stood there. Today, when visitors look up at the 4 great faces against the sky, few remember what lies beneath the surface: the drill marks, the cracks, and the breath of those who came before. Rushmore is not only a monument of rock, but of humanity, of sweat, dust, and belief. The mountain has spoken through light and thunder, and those faces, though still, continue to tell the story of small hands and great faith. Behind the perfect lines, there is still something unspoken, a story waiting within the stone, a story still waiting to be heard by those who will listen. Behind the face of Abraham Lincoln, there is a narrow passage deep within the mountain. Few people know that it is not a natural crack, but the remnant of an unfinished dream. In 1938, when the carving of the 4 presidents was nearly complete, Gutzon Borglum began another project he called the Hall of Records. It was a secret chamber he hoped would tell the story of America to generations yet to come. He imagined a grand hall carved into the granite, 25 meters high and 30 meters wide, with an intricately detailed arched ceiling. There, He wanted to place copies of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the documents that shaped the nation. A library in stone, where memory would never fade, even when time erased everything else. To Borglum, the four faces outside were only the surface of history. This room would be its heart. The work began in the freezing winter of 1938. Each strike of the drill echoed into the mountain, opening a tunnel that reached deeper each day. The engineers said they had to hang from ropes on the cliffside, blasting small charges to avoid cracking Lincoln's face above. The rock was hauled away cart by cart, falling into the canyon below like ashes from a dream taking shape. Borglum often stood at the tunnel's mouth, arms folded, watching the stone open layer by layer, his eyes filled with determination and faith that he was touching something beyond time. But war was coming. The funds ran out, and Borglum died before the project reached the halfway point. In 1941, the Hall of Records stopped forever. Only a dark corridor remained, ending in a rough wall of granite. Later, the government sealed the entrance with steel and covered it with stone. For decades, no one was allowed to enter. Today, standing at the foot of the monument, visitors cannot see that door. It hides behind Lincoln's head, among the pines and the shifting layers of rock. Only a few old photographs remain, depicting a lonely steel door set against a backdrop of grey stone. No sign, no path, just a faint scar, visible only to those who look closely from afar. Many believe it is only a legend, yet the room is real, still there inside the mountain, like a breath held for generations. Borglum once wrote, "One day, when we are gone, this place will tell them who we were." He never lived to see his dream come to fruition. The chamber was sealed, buried with the vision of a library in stone. Years later, the government returned and placed a small stone vault inside, containing replicas of the nation's founding documents and the history of the monument itself, as a message to the future. The story of the porcelain panels placed within would be told in another chapter. When the afternoon light falls across Lincoln's face, one can imagine the emptiness behind it, the cold, unfinished space waiting in silence. No voices, no breath, only stillness. Sometimes the wind passes through the cracks, and some say it sounds like a whisper. Perhaps it is the echo of the workers who once stood there. Or perhaps it is Borglum's dream that has yet to go to sleep. Rushmore does not only have four faces turned outward, it also has a sealed heart within, a place untouched by time. But the secret of Rushmore is not only inside the mountain. It is also written on its surface, in the tiny marks that time has not yet erased. Under the sunlight, thousands of small dots shimmer like silver dust. Many visitors think they are ancient symbols or secret carvings, but they are not. They are the remains of a technique the workers called honeycombing. Each drill hole was placed a few inches apart, so that the dynamite could break away thick layers of rock without cracking what remained. After the stone split, the workers smoothed it with air hammers, then finished it by hand to form the curves of the faces. In the sunlight, those marks resemble the cells of a giant honeycomb, the result of thousands of repeated drills over 14 years of labor. Even today, if you stand close to the monument, you can still see them. Tiny dots on the stone skin of the 4 presidents. Some say they look like paws, making the mountain seem alive, as if it were breathing. For those who know the history, they are the traces of labor, the rhythm of human hands left on the rock. Each drill mark is a breath, a drop of sweat, a fragment of memory from those who once hung high above the ground. The Hall of Records, the room that was never opened, and the honeycomb marks on the surface are 2 sides of the same story. One is the dream of an artist who wanted to keep America's memory inside the mountain. The other is the work of ordinary people who carved that dream into the stone. One side is hidden, the other is in plain sight. Together, they make Mount Rushmore more than a monument. It is a living symphony of the unfinished, a place where what has been forgotten still endures, quiet and strong as the mountain itself. There is something few people know. The mountain where 4 presidents are carved in stone was once sacred land, long before America was born. To the Lakota Sioux, the Black Hills are not just land. They are the heart of the world. They call this place Hesapa, the Black Hills. It is the land where the spirits of their ancestors dwell, where people are born, and where they return when they die. In their belief, the Black Hills are the place where heaven and earth meet, where prayers can touch the divine. In 1868, the Fort Laramie Treaty was signed between the United States government and the Sioux Nation. According to that agreement, the entire Black Hills region was recognized as sacred land belonging to the Lakota forever. That treaty still lies in the National Archives, a record of a promise. But forever lasted less than 10 years. In 1874, when General George Custer's expedition discovered gold in those quiet valleys, the gold rush spread across the West. Thousands of miners flooded into the sacred hills, and the promise of the treaty was torn apart like fragile paper. 2 years later, the US government seized the land and forced the Sioux to leave. For them, it was not only the loss of territory, it was the loss of their soul. That pain has flowed quietly through generations, a wound that never healed. When the construction of Mount Rushmore began in 1927, in the heart of the Black Hills, the Lakota did not see 4 faces of glory. They saw 4 faces carved into the wound of their ancestors. More than a century later, that wound is still open. In 1980, the United States Supreme Court, in the case United States versus Sioux Nation of Indians, ruled that the government had stolen the land, violating the Fifth Amendment. The court ordered more than $100 million in compensation, which is worth billions today. But the Sioux refused. They said, "The land cannot be bought with gold. We only want what was taken returned to us." Yet even after the ruling, justice found no shape, because some wounds cannot be measured by money. In the 1970s, the fire of resistance rose again. The American Indian Movement, AM, occupied Mount Rushmore one night, setting up camp beneath the monument. They called it the Sacred Mount of the Sioux. To them, Rushmore was a symbol of power carved upon stolen ground. In the darkness, the flames from their camp flickered against the stone faces, one side lit by rebellion, the other by silence. That night became part of history, a silent conversation between two worlds, one of stone and one of spirit. And amid the debates, one question kept returning. Could there ever be a fifth face? For decades, rumors spread. Some wanted Martin Luther King Jr., the symbol of equality. Some suggested Ronald Reagan. Others proposed Sacagawea, the native woman who guided Lewis and Clark. Each era had its own name, each a wish to continue writing America's story in stone. But every year, the National Park Service gave the same answer. It cannot be done. The rock around the monument is too weak. Any new carving could cause the granite to collapse. Rushmore, they said, has already said all it can say. Yet for the Lakota, the fifth face has always existed. Not carved in rock, but living in memory. They call him Ben Black Elk, son of the legendary spiritual leader Black Elk, the man once known as the storyteller of the Black Hills. For years, Ben stood beneath the monument, dressed in traditional robes, taking photos with visitors. He did not protest. He disagreed. He simply stood there, a bridge between two worlds, the builders and the forgotten. The Lakota called him the fifth face of Mount Rushmore, a face not carved by hands but carved by memory. When travelers stopped beside him, Ben would tell them stories of the 6 grandfathers, of the ancient prayers that once rose through these valleys. His voice was low, steady, like the voice of the mountain itself. The sight of him standing in the wind beneath the 4 presidents became a quiet symbol of endurance, not shouting, not fighting, just existing, to remind the world that memory cannot be erased. Today, when we look up at Mount Rushmore, 2 stories live side by side. One is the nation's monument, grand and shining each night beneath the lights. The other lies deep within the stone and the pine forests, the land the Lakota still call sacred, even in loss. And that is why, on windy evenings in the Black Hills, the people say they still hear the old songs echoing across the cliffs. Mount Rushmore is a symbol of ideals and of power, but it is also a symbol of loss and silence. The 4 great faces tell the story of a nation, but beneath them are the faces that were never carved. Stone can remember victory, but it also remembers pain. And between the light and the shadow, between the noise of history and the silence of memory, Mount Rushmore still stands, half a temple of freedom, half a tomb for ancient souls. The stone does not speak, but if you listen long enough, you might hear what time has tried to hide. This monument bears the mark of honored power and the faces forgotten within the stone. There is something that few people mention when discussing Mount Rushmore. The man who created it, Gutzon Borglum, was not only a brilliant sculptor, but also a man full of contradictions. He was praised as the artist who carved the soul of America into stone. Yet his life stood between light and shadow, between ambition and obsession, between the hunger for greatness and the fear of being forgotten. Before he ever reached South Dakota, Borglum worked on another great mountain in Georgia, known as Stone Mountain. It was a massive carving of 3 Confederate leaders from the Civil War: Jefferson Davis, Robert E. Lee, and Stonewall Jackson. He believed he was carving history into the mountain, but for many, that history was a wound that had never healed. Stone Mountain was more than a monument. It was a political statement. The United Daughters of the Confederacy led the project, and many members of the Ku Klux Klan gave their support. In the early 1900s, the Klan had returned to power across the South, and Borglum, with his pride and his dream of being remembered as the Michelangelo of America, found himself standing in the midst of that storm. There was never proof that he was a member of the Klan, but his connections with its leaders were real. He met with them, accepted their funding, and in private letters spoke of his sympathy for what he called the rebirth of Southern pride. He was a man of strong belief, sometimes too strong. He believed that art should serve the ideals of a nation, even when those ideals were divided. Soon, the project collapsed. Borglum fought with the organizers over control, over money, over the meaning of the work itself. Before he was forced to leave, he destroyed the original model and said quietly, "No one else will touch my dream." He left Georgia in anger, his reputation scarred, but his vision alive. From that failure, another idea began to rise, a monument that would not belong to one side, but to the whole of America. Mount Rushmore became his redemption. He said, "I will build a monument no one can claim for themselves." Yet the irony was apparent. He would carve it on land that had already been taken from the Lakota Sioux, a place where the wounds of division were still open. Still, he continued. He believed that only stone, silent and unbroken, could outlast the noise of human conflict. People said his eyes were sharp, his voice rang like a hammer, and his hands trembled slightly whenever he touched the mountain. He worked like a man possessed, walking the scaffolds each morning, checking every line, shouting orders that echoed through the valley. Those who worked with him said he did not carve the mountain. He commanded it. Each explosion, each strike of the chisel, was a note in the great symphony he was writing for time itself. And yet, behind all that energy was solitude, a deep loneliness that came from his need to prove he was meant to leave something eternal. Many believed his past at Stone Mountain changed the way he saw Rushmore. He no longer wanted to honor one cause, but the spirit of a whole nation. He chose 4 presidents: Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln. For him, they were a unity made of stone. For history, they were the redemption of a man searching for peace within himself. But even as the faces took shape, Borglum was not finished. He wanted to carve more than faces. He wanted to carve words. He dreamed of what he called the entablature, a vast wall below the monument that would carry the words of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the 9 greatest moments in American history. He imagined the moonlight falling across those words, revealing not just the body of a nation, but its soul. He called it a prayer in stone, not carved to be read, but to exist with time itself. He said, "If the faces are the body, then the entablature will be the heart." He wanted the monument not only to be seen, but to be felt. "When the light falls across the words," he wrote, "people will understand that freedom is not only spoken, it is carved into the earth." However, the war broke out, and the money ceased to exist. The dream was never finished. Borglum sent desperate letters to Washington, pleading to be allowed to continue. In one of them, he wrote, "If we stop at the faces, this monument will only have form. But if we carve the words, it will have a soul." The government never answered. When Borglum died in 1941, the entablature remained only a drawing, a vision covered in dust. The project was abandoned, and his words lived on only in the archives. Today, at the foot of the monument, there are no inscriptions. Only 4 faces are looking toward the open sky. Some say that maybe it is the absence of words that gives Rushmore its quiet beauty, because in that silence, you can feel both what was created and what was left unfinished. Gutzon Borglum, the man who gave America one of its most significant symbols, died with many dreams still undone. He left behind unfinished works, unanswered questions, and one quiet thought that still echoes through the Black Hills. Can art ever be separated from the man who made it? Perhaps Mount Rushmore is not only the story of 4 presidents. Perhaps it is also the story of the man who carved them. A man who believed deeply in greatness and carried within him the loneliness of someone who longed to carve his name into eternity. When Borglum died, people said that a part of his soul stayed within the stone, and perhaps the mountain itself began to have a soul of its own. Every morning, as dawn spreads across the peaks of the Black Hills, the first light of day does not fall on the pine trees. It pauses on the foreheads of the giant faces. Many believe it is only a trick of the morning sun, but in truth, that light comes from a strange vein hidden deep inside the granite. Geologists call it pegmatite, a mineral line formed more than 2 billion years ago, when molten rock cooled slowly and crystallized into bright bands within the darker stone. Those veins of pegmatite give Mount Rushmore its quiet, living glow. When the sun rises, the first rays glide across the surface and reflect on that bright vein, making the stone seem to shine from within. In that short moment, George Washington's face seems to awaken, then slowly fade into the daylight. Borglum never lived to see it, but perhaps he knew. Light would be the breath of the monument. To the naked eye, the pegmatite looks like a faint, pale line, but under the morning sun, it shimmers like a silver thread that connects 2 worlds, the world of man and the world of stone. The sculptors once said they worked with the light, because that reflection helped them see where to carve, where to stop, where the mountain itself was guiding them. Light, in that way, did not just reveal the monument. It awakened the spirit inside the rock. The Lakota people have another belief. They say that light is a sign that the 6 grandfathers, the 6 sacred ancestors, are still watching over the Black Hills. To scientists, it is only a reflection. But whether through faith or reason, both share the same truth. The mountain is alive. Its heartbeat is slow, unseen, but always there. In 1998, the National Park Service began a new chapter, a chapter of silent preservation. They placed sensors deep inside the rock to record every vibration, every fracture, and every tiny change in temperature that the naked eye could not see. The data was sent each day like the pulse of a giant sleeping under the open sky. They say Rushmore breathes. In summer, the stone expands. In winter, it contracts. The sensors can hear the breath of time, the faint cracking that whispers when the seasons turn. Erosion occurs at a remarkably slow pace, advancing only about an inch every 10,000 years. A number so small, it reminds us that human life is just a brief moment. But no matter how slow, time never stops its work. It smooths, it shapes. It reminds us that nothing eternal stands outside change. The engineers work in silence. They hang from the cliffs, checking each small crack, wiping away the rain that settles on the surface. They do not touch the president's face. They listen to the mountain's heartbeat. Each signal is a breath. Each number is a small story of time. To them, Rushmore is not just a stone. It is an old, patient body that still breathes in harmony with the rhythm of nature. On winter nights, when snow covers the Black Hills and everything grows quiet, the control room glows with the flicker of monitors. On the screen, soft lines move in rhythm, the heartbeat of the stone. One engineer once said, "We are not protecting a monument. We are caring for a living being that sleeps." And perhaps that is true. Mount Rushmore, a creation of human hands, now lives alongside the wind and the sky, breathing with light, breathing with the world. Those who work there continue their daily tasks in silence, and the mountain answers only with a single spark of light on Washington's forehead. It flashes, then fades, like a quiet thank you. If you stand at the base of the mountain on a calm morning, you may see that vein of light shimmer for just a few seconds before it disappears. It feels like the slow blink of history itself. The stone does not speak, but the light does. And in the silence of the mountain, you can feel something moving, as if time itself were leaning in, listening. The stone stands still, but history continues to unfold in quiet ways. And within that silence, there is still something that has never been opened. Behind the face of Abraham Lincoln, deep within the cold layers of stone, lies a hidden passage that few people are aware of. There are no signs, no paths for visitors, only a narrow, winding trail between great boulders, leading toward a quiet grey wall. In the late afternoon, if you stand at just the right angle, you might see a thin crack in the rock, as small as a healed scar. That is the Hall of Records. The chamber Borglum once called the Library of America the library he dreamed of carving into the heart of the mountain. The entrance sits high above, behind Lincoln's Head, a location only accessible to the preservation team of the National Park Service. A steel door is sealed within the granite, camouflaged so perfectly it nearly disappears into the mountain's skin. When the wind passes through that narrow slit, the echo that returns is deep and distant, like the breath of a sleeping mountain. The Lakota people say it is the voice of the 6 grandfathers, the 6 ancestral spirits watching over the Black Hills. To Americans, it is the memory of a nation, real but locked away between stone and time. In 1938, Borglum began drilling into the mountain. He did not want to build only a monument. He wanted to build a sanctuary of history. In his sketches, the Hall of Records was vast, nearly 25 meters high and 30 meters long, with vaulted ceilings and stairs leading into the center. He imagined placing inside it the most sacred documents: the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Emancipation Proclamation, and the records of how the monument itself was created. To Borglum, the 4 faces outside were only the surface. The chamber within was the heart. But war came. Funding ran out. Borglum died before his dream could be completed. The tunnel reached only 18 meters deep. The ceiling was rough, the walls unfinished. After his death, the government stopped all work, calling the project unnecessary. The door was sealed. The dream was buried within the stone. More than 50 years had passed until the summer of 1998. With permission from the National Park Service, a team of engineers, historians, and miners returned to Rushmore to complete the final part of the idea. Not the entire hall, but the smallest piece of its heart. They reopened the tunnel behind Lincoln, removed the old rock, and stepped into a place untouched by light since 1941. Inside, there were no lamps, no decorations, only raw granite walls and the marks of old drills. At the center, they placed a granite vault containing 16 porcelain panels, crafted to endure for thousands of years. On each panel, they engraved the most sacred documents of the United States: the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Emancipation Proclamation, and the biographies of the 4 presidents carved on the mountain. A few other panels recorded the project's history, the names of the workers, and a message from the National Park Service. Then came the final panel, dedicated to Borglum himself. On it was engraved a letter he once wrote, a message to the future. May the record of this memorial endure for thousands of years. Gutzon Borglum, 1938. Short, humble, but within those words lay the soul of the monument. Not pride, but fear, the fear of being forgotten. The Hall of Records not only keeps documents, it harbors the quiet fear of a man and the contradiction of a nation that longs to be remembered, yet fears that eternity will erase its significance. The panels were placed within the vault, sealed with bronze and buried beneath the stone floor. A layer of concrete was poured over, and then a granite slab engraved with a simple line was placed on top. Beneath this place, in the Hall of Records, we have placed the most important documents of the United States of America. This is our message to the future. There was no ceremony, no cameras. Only a few people stood in the dim evening light of the Black Hills. When the final stone was set, one engineer whispered, "Now America has its heart." Since that day, the door has remained silent. Visitors at the base of the monument see only the four faces gazing toward the sunrise, unaware that behind one of them lies a chamber holding the memory of a nation. Historians refer to the Hall of Records as a time capsule, but if you look deeper, it is Borglum's final message in stone. His belief that humanity can carve into mountains, can challenge time itself, yet still needs a place to hide the fear of being forgotten. Some believe he wanted not only to preserve history, but also to protect the dream that was never completed, the entablature that never came to life. Perhaps the Hall of Records was his way of finishing it, not with hammer and chisel, but with faith and imagination. Someone once said, "If Mount Rushmore is the face of America, then the Hall of Records is its soul. Inside, there is no light, no sound. Only 16 porcelain panels waiting for someone, 100 or 1,000 years from now, to open the door and reread the message. For America, the Hall of Records stands as a mirror of two emotions, pride and unease. A young nation that wants to stand firm as a stone, yet fears the passage of time. The chamber holds not only records, but also ambition, doubt, and the memory of a people caught between the light of freedom and the shadow of power. Inside, there are no guards, no machines, only stone and silence. But every morning, when the sunlight sweeps across the Black Hills, the first beam glides over Lincoln's head and fades into the cliff. The same direction as the sealed door. It lasts only a few seconds, then disappears. To those who are unfamiliar, it is merely a fleeting ray of light. To those who understand, it is the mountain remembering what it holds. No one knows how long the panels will survive. Perhaps 1,000 years, perhaps only a few centuries. But they remain as proof of a straightforward truth. No matter how deeply we carve our names into stone, time will always decide what stays. Mount Rushmore, four faces turned toward the light, and one sealed door resting in the dark, stands as a perfect image of that paradox. Half looking forward, half looking back, half for the world to see, half for the world to search for. Perhaps that is what Borglum wanted, because if the Hall of Records had been open to everyone, it would have been nothing more than a room of paper. But sealed away, hidden, it became something more. It became alive, a mystery meant to be sought, not owned. Today, when the wind moves through the Black Hills, the mountain keepers say they sometimes hear a low, distant sound from behind Lincoln's head. Some say it is the sensors. Some say it is the mountain breathing. Others believe it is the chamber itself. The sound of words reading themselves in the dark. Maybe the secret has already been opened, not by a key, but by memory. because what the Hall of Records left behind is not found in porcelain or in words. It lives in the breath of the mountain, and within that breath, Rushmore still tells its story, a story of people, of light, and of the eternal desire to live longer than time itself. From the sacred land, the Lakota once called the 6 grandfathers, where 6 ancestral spirits are. From the sacred land, the Lakota call the 6 grandfathers, where 6 ancestral spirits are believed to still watch over the world. To the granite cliffs, where 4 enormous faces are carved into the heart of the Black Hills. The journey of this mountain is a journey of memory. Each layer of stone is a fragment of time. Each crack is an unfinished story. At the base of the mountain are ancient tales, carried through drumbeats and smoke. On its slopes are drill marks, the dust of dynamite, and the dreams of humankind. And deep within the mountain, the Hall of Records remains still, like a sleeping heart, keeping messages meant for the future. But among all the faces carved with hammers and fire, there is another face, one that cannot be seen but can be felt. It is deeply ingrained in the memory of the native people. They call it the spirit of the land, the breath of their ancestors. It has no shape, yet it lives in every gust of wind, in the whisper of pine trees when night falls. Perhaps that is the one face time can never erase. History has never been still. It does not rest in books or in monuments. It only sleeps, and it whispers to those who are willing to listen. When night falls over the Black Hills, the wind moves through faint veins of pegmatite, creating a dim shimmer like the blood of the stone itself. The moon glides over the peaks, touches the still faces, and slips into the dark crevices where the Hall of Records hides. In that quiet moment, no one knows what the mountain is thinking. Only that it is still alive, through light, through wind, through memories that refuse to fade. In the silence of the forest night, you may think you hear a distant breath, the breath of stone, the breath of time, or perhaps your own breath, standing before something that can never be held. Because if you listen long enough, even the rocks can tell stories. And those stories are not only about America, but about us all. About people who keep trying to leave their mark within the endless flow of a moving world. And if you still hear something, perhaps it is not the wind. Perhaps it is the sound of memory calling your name. Thank you for walking with me through the corridors of time, through the layers of stone, and through the quiet breath of the mountain, until we meet again, when night returns, and the untold stories rise once more from the earth.